Oh, yes. I'm a philosopher. Let you kids know there's not much money in it. Not many jobs advertised for a philosopher, even a good philosopher. However, a philosopher is one who is obsessed with the love of truth, knowledge, wisdom. Find out what's really going on and what's really important. For example, what's the purpose of life? Is there any reason for it? When I was young, we were taught that it was all part of some great plan on God's part. God, this great daddy in the sky, made us all. He fashioned each tiny feather, each little leaf, each little hair was made by God deliberately. And it's some huge, vast plan that we should emerge slowly but surely from ignorance into knowledge, into love, compassion, understanding, cooperation, and all the pleasure that that might provide for us all. Yes, but then they told me very quickly after that my purpose was to get a job. I was to find a place for myself in this great rat race and compete and jostle with others to be the most productive, to seize the most property, to make the most money, to acquire the most comfort and material possessions and property. I question that. The purpose of life is not to get a job. The only purpose for having a job really is to provide one with the wherewithal to extend one's life. One should have some other purpose than having a job. One may choose to explore some specialized area of human activity and become good at supplying some particular service or product, and one can make a living from this. If it's a well-selected area of activity or production, then one will be rewarded with satisfaction, job satisfaction. For example, early on in life I decided I would like to be a writer. I was so astounded by how much pleasure was brought to me by writers, particularly writers who were dead and long gone before I was born. And I could read their words and re-experience what they had in their minds at the time of writing. I thought this was fascinating. Of course, I was a child in the days when the only form of entertainment in the home was a radio. We used to call these wireless radios, which is funny because they were all connected to the mains electricity supply with wires. Very poor reception on these radios. You know, the sound used to come and go, and tuning into a particular station could be quite a job. You could miss half of the broadcast, or the sound could contain a considerable amount of interference. Nevertheless, that was exciting. We were communicating over vast distances. I could hear people in Russia, in Zagreb, wherever that is, or Oslo, or Reykjavik. I could hear people in these foreign countries gabbling on in their funny way. I found it tremendously exciting. Of course, that was what led to the explosion of rock music, pop music. People my age, all over the world, could be listening to the same recording music at the same time, and feeling that we're a part of some huge, global, exciting activity. When I was 11, my dad finally broke down his resistance to having a television. He used to call it the square-eyed monster. And we got a television, and of course, like all the rest of my generation, I became an addict. That was very exciting in the early days, in the 1960s, because there were only 2 television channels in this country, so that almost everyone in the country was watching the same thing at the same time. I remember how astounding it was that when President John F. Kennedy was shot away in Dallas, I could see this event within an hour of it happening. That is, on our television set, we could see John F. Kennedy smiling and waving, and then slumping forward in his seat as his blood spurted all over his beautiful wife. Many historical events in the 1960s were experienced live by millions, and the television came to be a political tool. It was realized that anyone who could take over control of a live transmission could communicate directly to the masses without censorship by government or other influences. The notable case that comes to mind is when the yippies, the United States anarchist hippies, took over the David Frost show, being transmitted from London, and started decrying capitalist society live. Well, actually, I remember Jimi Hendrix took over the Lulu show. He was asked to play his wonderful hit, Hey Joe, and he did so with gusto. Jimmy was a performer who actually came over better live than on record. But after he finished Hey Joe, he swung straight into God Save the Queen through his mega distortion, maximum volume speakers, and that made us chuckle.
Meow.